I can decide for myself. We're not the same, Grandfather and I. You both know, the Daleks have taken so much from me.
Shemai guys and girls, JonnyVR here with a Big Finish review. If you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and check out the rest of our channel and subscribe for more content. So Big Finish released Susan's War yesterday, a box set that tells of Susan's story in the Time War. Many Doctor Who fans will know that Susan is the Doctor's granddaughter, who was indeed the first companion since the show started in 1963. Now this box set is known as a special release, and what that means is that as far as I can tell, they don't intend to do any more of this series. It's just a one-off special, and you can tell because in the About section on the website, it numbers the episodes as 1, 2, 3 and 4, whereas other box sets that are continuing have the number in 1.1 to 1.2 to designate them into series. This makes it a really good purchase if you want to try out Big Finish for the first time, because there's no obligation to continue listening to this series if it's only a one-off special, and having listened to it, it very much stands on its own. However, if the box set sells very well, then I'm sure they could incorporate these characters in other ways. It's also relatively cheap for a Big Finish box set, at the cost of £20 for the download or £25 for the physical copy. It's a lot cheaper than some of the other box sets on Big Finish, which can go up to £35. Of course, if you order the CD at the moment, you won't be able to have it delivered to you because of the coronavirus crisis, but purchasing it from the Big Finish website means that you can listen to it immediately via the Big Finish app. And once the coronavirus crisis is over, they will fulfill all physical copies. And if you didn't know already, Big Finish are giving away free Doctor Who stories every single Monday for the next 7 weeks. This week's one is called The Beginning, from the Companion Chronicles, which was made for the 50th anniversary. It's free to download if you have a Big Finish account, which you can make for free, and I highly recommend you do that because you'll get free Doctor Who stories for the next 7 weeks, so it's the perfect time to give Big Finish a go. The first episode of the box set, Sphere of Influence, sees the return of Ian Chesterton, another first ever companion, played by William Russell, who is 95 years old, as well as the return of the Sensorites and the Sensphere that featured in the 1964 episodes The Sensorites, and haven't been featured since. Coming in at 68 minutes long, what makes this episode so good is that it both acts as a sequel to the Sensorite story from 1964, as well as a story about how the Time War affected the planet of the Sensphere. Sphere of Influence also reintroduces everything we already know about the Sensorites, while also adding a whole load of world building in there, so that we know even more now. What I found about this box set, and other box sets by Big Finish, is that for those who have seen the earlier seasons of Doctor Who, the return of the Sensorites and the Sensphere was done in a very clever way, yet for new listeners who haven't seen classic Doctor Who, it's written so you don't need to. It is simultaneously satisfying for old and new fans. If you have watched it in the past, you can understand all the Easter eggs and callbacks, but everything is explained for the new listener. This episode also gets to explore the relationship between Ian and Susan, which is absolutely brilliant, as they both get to play characters who haven't seen each other for decades.
Ian! Susan!
And again, if you already knew that they knew each other, this reunion is great, but all you really need is the knowledge that they did know each other, and even if you didn't know that, it makes it clear early on. Initially introduced as a very timid species, we get to explore how the Time War has changed the Sensorites, and it adds a whole lot more to them as a species, and we get to explore just how formidable they can be in wartime. The second episode, The Uncertain Shore, begins in a very different style to the first episode, and it can take a while to understand what's going on, why the characters are where they are, and what is actually happening. It's as if you're thrown into the world, like you've just woken up there and finding out everything for yourself, but it all comes together in another solid Time War story that manages to do the opposite of Sphere of Influence and explore the Time War's effect on smaller populations. And again, it uses key ideas from earlier seasons of Doctor Who that those who have watched it will enjoy, but are fully explained for new listeners. The third episode, Assets of War, takes a step back from the explosive goings-on of the first two episodes. I think this can make it seem a little lackluster in comparison, but it tells a very good story about how the Time Lords are affected by the Time War, and just how far they would go. Episode 4, The Shoreditch Intervention, closes out the box set in style, as we get to see Susan interact with the 8th Doctor. This box set provides a good introduction as to what to expect from a Paul McGann box set from Big Finish. And the dynamic between Paul McGann and Carole Ford, who plays Susan, is brilliant, as Paul McGann has to play her grandfather despite being younger than her. Yet again, this box set uses key ideas from classic Doctor Who seasons, and yet explains them fully for new listeners. This episode also connects to other Big Finish productions, yet it's written so that it's not necessary to listen to them. The episode closes out the box set in a way that Susan's story can just be left there, or picked up in the future. Most importantly of all, Carole Ford's performance of Susan carries through the box set, and we get to discover a different Susan, an older Susan than what was seen in the TV show. We get to explore what's happened in her life, what she's been through. We get to discover her morality in wartime, and how she completes missions, and we get to see how she reacts and deals with different wartime decisions, as well as her reunions with other characters such as Ian and the Doctor. All in all, this results in a thoroughly enjoyable box set that I really enjoyed listening to. I highly recommend it if you were looking for a Big Finish purchase. And I would recommend looking at the special releases if you didn't know whether you wanted to try a Big Finish audio, as they're mostly one-offs. So yeah, thanks very much for watching. If you like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more content. Leave a comment if you listened to any good Big Finishes recently, and I'll see you next time. Bye!